Are you wondering what to do with all that leftover Halloween candy? Or did you even go trick-or-treating this year? We did, and we had the best weather. Usually we never know what we're going to get. Cold, wet, windy, but it was actually dry, and we had short sleeve weather. I've got an idea that you can use with your Halloween candy that would also count as a learning activity for your child. So if you homeschool, you can do this during the day. If you don't homeschool, but you still have lots of Halloween candy and you would like to do something useful with it before you make it disappear, stick around. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to be your child's most influential teacher. Today I'm talking about what you can do with leftover Halloween candy that can turn it into a math lesson for your child. Before we get started, go ahead and click like and subscribe so you can be notified each time I upload a new video for your child's education. Now, before I get into it, I'm going to show you a little bit of my children's costumes this year. We usually like to do theme costumes, and this was the first year in 3 years that all three of my kids had not gone completely together as a theme. So if you look, here's my oldest son, and he is Jack Skellington. I needed something quick and easy that suited him, and he's so skinny it was perfect. And then my younger two are Indiana Jones and Willie Scott from The Temple of Doom, which is the second Indiana Jones movie. So they had a blast this year at Halloween. But we also ended up with 3 very full bags of trick-or-treat candy. So let's look at what you can do with your leftover candy. Number 1, sort your candy into categories. And this is where you can level it for each age of your child. You can do anything from sorting by color to how the packages are wrapped, whether they're individually wrapped or they come in multi-piece packages. You can sort by the consistency of the candy, whether it's hard or chewy. You can sort by the flavor. Is it chocolate? Is it peanut butter? Is it fruity? And so on. So just the fact that you are sorting candy into categories, that would be lower level elementary math. Now keep in mind, as your child is sorting these into categories, they might need a little bit of guidance depending on what you plan to do with that information after you sort it. So for example, if they have 20 different categories, that's going to be a little bit difficult to chart later on. It doesn't mean you can't combine some categories though. So let them give it a go at first. Step number 2 is to count and record how much candy is in each category. Now, be aware that if all of the candy is spread out too far and each category only has 2 or 3 items in it, that might make for a boring chart later on. Keep in mind, we will be doing charts with this information, either a bar chart or something else like a pie chart if your child is a little bit older. So if you're looking at a bar chart and every category has about the same, those bars are going to be pretty boring. So you can't really do a lot of questioning as far as which one has the most and the least and so on. So you may have to give a little bit of support. Let me give you an idea of how my 3 children sorted their candy. Now I have with me some notes on how each of my 3 children organized their candy, so it may give you a little idea. My 11-year-old sorted candy by the brand, so I knew he would have lots of different categories, as you will see in my example later. But I knew he could handle it, and then in the end, he made a miscellaneous or oddball category for those items that didn't fit in the specific brands. Okay, my 6-year-old, he chose a much simpler way of organizing his candy. And it was a good idea that he do this on his own because as I found, when he would sit there and count the pieces of candy, he would come into some mistakes and I could help him through those. He did it by flavor. So here were his categories: chocolate, fruity, and miscellaneous. So anything that didn't fit in with chocolate or fruity, he just put it in the miscellaneous or oddball category. And then my 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, she had her older brother assist her, and these were her categories. So she had 40 small packs of candies, 32 bars, 10 pieces of hard candy, 11 pieces of chewy candy, and 22 in the miscellaneous category that wouldn't fit any of those. Hi parents, is your child struggling to read or even hates to read and nothing you have tried has worked? Get my free guide, 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'm going to show you the simple tricks that I've used for years to successfully improve children's reading and their confidence in reading. It's easy, it's simple, and it's free. Just go to theparentteacherbridge.com/reading help. You can find that link in the description below. Step number 3 is to make a graph. And it's okay if your child hasn't gotten into that part of math yet. This is a very interactive activity that your child can become interested in reading graphs, and you can teach them how to read a graph, how to make a graph, and you get to use lots of color. So you can find plenty of templates online. I'm just going to show you a couple that I found in my search. I think one of them came from Teachers Pay Teachers, and then one of them was from. So here's a basic bar chart template that I found. This one was on Teachers Pay Teachers, but I like that it gives an area for a title, an area for the y-axis, and then down here on the x-axis, that's where you would write your names of candy. And then it makes it very easy to draw. If you had 3 candies in this category, you could just color in these 3 blocks, write the name of the candy, and so on. But even if you don't have something like that, you can use notebook paper to make a bar chart. We definitely have done that in the past. All right, so this is just a blank pie chart that I found. And the way we did our pie chart, if we needed more space, is I just used a ruler and divided it up. This is good for older kids learning percentages and fractions. Now, I mentioned that you can use regular notebook paper to make a bar chart. A ruler is definitely going to help you. If you don't have too many bars, you can just use a ruler placed vertically and just trace it, and that can be the width of the bar. If you're expecting an elementary child to freehand bars, you're going to have skinny bars and fat bars, and the ideal is to have each bar about the same width, which is why I use a ruler for that. Or you can turn your notebook paper sideways and just use the lines on your paper for the width of the bars, and then all you would have to do is create a scale on the side to divide that. But in the past, I've done bar graphs with notebook paper vertically and horizontally. So just make the most of what you have, and your child is still going to learn and take away some things with it. Let's look at my son's couple of examples so you can see what you can do based on younger children, or maybe giving your upper elementary or middle school child a challenge. Okay, this is an example of my 11-year-old's bar chart. You can tell he put a title on there. He's got his amount of pieces on the side, and he's got the title of his candies down at the bottom. Now, what happened, he sorted his by brand, and he had more brands than what this chart could hold. So we just went with all chocolate. Every one of these candies has chocolate in them. And from looking at the graph, you can see we have about the same amount as Whoppers, as Twix, so they're about the same popularity. And Tootsie Rolls far outnumbered the rest. I had to have a discussion with him on what he thought our scale should be along the side, and he decided we should count by twos, and we ended at 22, and I said, well, let's not count that 23rd one. You can just eat it. But he was determined to go above that. So you can let some things slide, and your child. Now, to give my child a little bit of a challenge, this is my oldest, and he has done the bar graph thing each Halloween for a few years now. So he kind of knew what to do and how to coach the other kids through this. But for the pie chart, I found a pie chart that was already divided into 20 equal size pieces. And that means I knew that if the whole pie chart was 100%, that each of those pieces were worth 5%. And that way, if I needed something that was less than 5%, it was going to be easy to just draw a few lines to divide each of those pieces. I would only have to draw about 4 lines at the most to divide a piece that was 5% into 1% sized pieces. On this pie chart, he had the opportunity to use all his pieces of candy, even the non-chocolate categories, and he totaled up the entire amount that he had. We totaled that up several times, and yes, we used a calculator to double check. That in and of itself is a math lesson to double check your data or your information. And then he would take each specific kind of candy, let's say it's Tootsie Rolls, and he would put that number over the total in fraction form. And every fraction is a division problem. So he would make that into a decimal and then a percent. And he would know how much of the pie chart to color in. So let me show you how that turned out. So as you can see, we did not get super fancy on this one. This one took a little bit more time, so it unfortunately did not get a title. But just the act of doing the percentages and dividing things up was useful for him. And he wanted to use all these categories. And here you see the Tootsie Rolls outnumber a lot. Got quite a bit of Starburst. And then a lot of these, he got about the same amount in Hershey's, Baby Ruth, Sweet Tarts, Three Musketeers, and so on. There's M&M's, one of my favorites. And he liked Reese's quite a bit. He's got quite a bit of Reese's. And then you can see down here, I used a little bit of just me talking it through with him and explaining to him that we had 100% altogether divided by 20. Each section that it came with was 5%. So this is about the size of one of the pieces because I found a pie chart that was divided into 20 pieces already. So each piece was 5%. So if I'm looking at this, Starburst was 5, 10, 15%, and then one more percent. So 16% of his candy was Starbursts. So do you see your children liking an activity such as this? You know, you can even use markers, crayons. You can even use construction paper to make the bars for your bar chart and cut and paste. Make it fun for your child. They're going to learn, if nothing else, sorting and data collection, but you can go ahead and expose them to certain kinds of charts. You can use tally marks as you count as well. Counting by twos, that's another thing you can do. What other ideas do you have, and do you think your child would like this activity? Leave a comment below. Don't forget that you can follow the Parent Teacher Bridge on Facebook and Instagram. And remember my 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. That will be in the description below, so be sure to check that out. If you didn't yet, like and subscribe to this channel. Remember, parents, you are your child's most influential teacher.